Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Join us here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first. Let's talk about obesity with Lalita Kaul, PhD in nutritional science and biochemistry. She wrote a book on the subject 10 years ago, and now she's updated it. It is entitled Multidisciplinary Approach to the Management of Obesity, and it's a big problem, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. In my book, I say by 2030, there will be 1 billion people obese all over the world. And it's not for looking good and all that. It was affecting the health. In USA, we have very bad report. It's getting higher and higher and higher. And I'm not talking about the cosmetic from size 5, 6 to 2, but it's really affecting the heart, the cancer. So I have all the figures there, how many percentage will get cancer and if somebody is obese and they have heart disease, they have family history, their environmental things. You see, something genetic you cannot control, which is 40%, but the rest is controllable. You have to. So how I got the title of the book is, it's not that easy eating, exercising and eating. For some younger person, if they cut down the food and exercise, you can achieve, but there's so many other things which come into place. The idea came when Hillary Clinton wrote a book, It Takes a Village to Raise Children.
Yeah.
So then I said, there's so many things, your exercise, your mental status, your sleeping, all these play a role. So I did a lot of research and was the culmination to this book.
Is it processed food?
It's not the only problem. I had a grant on this prostate cancer from NIH about 15 years ago. Why do especially African American men have higher prostate cancer rate? And my study showed that they were taking more processed food. There was vitamin A deficiency, vitamin C. And I went all over the country presenting my data. Even now, somebody wrote to me, there's so many processed food. I said, I found out 15 years ago. So everything, yes, in my book, I said, you can put it to minimum. I never say no to everything because when I see the patients, I have a complete history of what they eat, what their family dynamics is. And so somebody takes once a week sandwich, cold cut, or twice. It's okay. We cannot do exactly by the book. No. It's very hard to live. But the excess of processed food I found in my esophagus and prostate cancer. And also they're high in sodium because they are treated. And in fact, I'm a professor. I gave lecture to medical students. The process, how the amines are converted to nitrosamine, and they are carcinogenic. Doesn't mean if you take processed food next day you will have cancer. It's something over the years. And in our prostate cancer study, we developed the Johns Hopkins questionnaire, taking the for 20 years history of what they were eating.
So these high sodium processed foods do play a part, but they're not the whole.
Definitely, yes, definitely.
But that's not the whole story. What's going on with children? Why are there so many obese children?
Because children they are eating more and more because both parents are working. And some of them, even both are working. I had a friend, she's a doctor. And when her children, she used to get up 5 in the morning and make their lunch. But now it's easier for them to get. I'm not against fast foods. I go and sometimes eat and enjoy. I tell my patient, if you like it, enjoy it. But then if it becomes a habit, then so children are, I saw mother brought her daughter with me, and she says she's worried. She has now, most of the obese people have diabetes. And she says, I'm afraid the way she's asking. When I asked the doctor, she says, oh, on my way to school, I pick up this thing, fast food, on my way home. I mean, she was like 90% eating fast food.
Oh my gosh.
So it took me, then I met another couple because the other person partner plays a role too. Says, oh, we just go and eat the fast food lunchtime every time. So I said, okay, if you like it, can we modify it? Can you do once or twice? Uh, I never say no, you cannot do it unless it's a content, because there is a interaction between medications and food you eat, so you have to really teach them. So like if I see a new patient, I have to see them first every 2 weeks until we make the progress, and then maybe once a month, so that they become their own master of it. And then one patient got up and said, Dr. Kaul, this is not a diet. I said, I don't give you 1200 calorie diet, 1400. I study what your habit is, what your family dynamics. Are you a single mom? Or how many people are in the family? And based on that, I make a plan for you, which is doable.
Also, the more you say no, the more you want something,
Yeah,
right?
we were taught in psychology class, never say no to the child. You have to say in a positive way. Let's do it other way. Just don't use the word no.
We'll have French fries on Saturday.
Yeah, that's what we do. And I have a chapter here on behavior modification. Behavior modification is very important, and each person has different behavioral problems. Somebody, I had a grant from DC government where or lunch and learn. So during lunchtime, I'm at Howard University, they signed up about 10 people, so they brought their lunch. And since everybody had the same problem, nobody was to say anything, so they discussed. Like one participant said, when I get into car, I'm so hungry, so I pass by donut. I cannot do it. So everybody participated. So one suggestion said, hey, why don't you keep fruit that you like? So you can attack the fruit until you go home. And the other one said, I go by my mom's place. She's on the way. She feeds me. Then they say, why don't you go and home? If she's living close by, go after dinner, or tell mom, can I visit you weekends? So everybody had something or the other. And so that program was very successful. And they would come to my office, write their weight. Then every 2 weeks, I'll meet individually, something they don't want to take. And that was very successful.
What's your feeling about Ozempic? Everybody's getting barometric surgery.
Yes.
I mean, is that the answer?
No, that's not the entire. In certain cases, like Ozempic was firstly for the diabetics and it helped.
Right.
But some diabetics could not tolerate it. They had so they had to be taken off. Now even the young kids are taking Ozempic. And how long will you take? Like my friend, she says her 40-year-old daughter, there is wedding, so everybody's taking Ozempic. But how long can you take? Would you take Ozempic lifetime? A 40-year person can expect to live 50 years, lifespan is extended. It's not a solution. That's putting a band-aid.
Right. So what do you recommend in this multi-dimensional approach, this multidisciplinary approach? What are your recommendations and how do they differ from the recommendations that are already out there?
Everything is in the book chapter by chapter. First, I talk about obesity, how prevalent it is, and in the United States, where it's highest. Then I give all the hard research, how it is tied to many body, conditions. Then I talk the economy, that how much USA will save in billions of dollars. Then I talk about the taking a test, like everybody says, how many times, how many, and the score you get, what category is. Then I talk about behavior modification. There are people who like to snack all day, and there are people who have to have just meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, they take it. So then I give the examples of that. How can you, like, if you like to eat on the time, so maybe make it 5 meals, breakfast, this thing, this. And then I talk about when you're going out, you're going to a Mexican restaurant, Indian restaurant, anything. Then I give the menu and say which foods to choose, and the bread basket, which is deadly. Or if you are going out with a close friend, it's a big entree, do the half. So I talk about that. Then I talk about exercise going hand in hand. If you have never exercised, you don't have to do marathon running. So I talk about if you are an indoor person, you don't have to buy expensive equipment. Like studies have shown, especially obese diabetic, after eating, you you walk 10 minutes in the house, uh, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it helps prevent the heart disease and also helps you lose control diabetes. And then someone patient said she lives in a area where there's a lot of drug shooting and all. So I tell her, walk in your apartment, 10 minutes, don't
Right.
sit every time. And so I give strategies for those. There are people who have to take the kids to school and all they cannot do. So we talk about in a good weather, if you have 1 hour lunch, then half an hour you can walk. Or if it's a big building, you can go up and down and walk, or outside, like our university is on a hilly thing. So do half the time walking so you get in and in. And if they cannot, I had a grant from World Bank where they wanted to help me incorporate exercise in the workers because they say they come early in the morning and they sit all day. So for each person, I developed a different strategy. In other words, where there's a will, there's a way.
Yes, yes. How do you feel about intermittent fasting?
Intermittent fasting is not for everybody. You do 16-hour fasting, 8 hour. Now, the critique the New York Times wrote that, it's very dangerous for the heart and all. I, like, patients come and ask me, it's not for everybody. I wouldn't give to diabetics and hypertensives. So I just tell them, the foods that they like, do this. But what happens, even if you do intermittent fasting, why, I mean, they didn't write about this, but I wrote on some forum, is what you eat during those 8 hours.
Right.
If you are just going every day and just, so what do you like during those 8 hours? Like breakfast, what do you like for lunch? And how much exercise you get? Or are you any parties coming up? So if you do that, it is okay.
Right. Right. I saw in your synopsis that you recommend some Indian recipes.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. There are Indian recipes there. Do you like Indian food?
I love Indian food.
Yeah, I have written, like we have some lot of very dishes where you have to do deep frying, then putting, and then I have put how you can bake it with the spices, then put in the sauce. It's
Okay.
too much oil, which is, even if it is olive oil, which is good, but too much of it is killing.
Well, thank you for writing this book. I don't think we can remind people often enough. During COVID, I thought that was the perfect time to highlight the benefits of good health. Of course, we didn't do that, but so many people that were overweight died of COVID.
Oh, yeah. I have a chapter in the book about COVID and obesity
Yeah.
because obesity is a big risk factor in COVID. And on top of it, if person has diabetes, their recovery is very poor. And
Yeah.
then I write about vitamin D. In fact, now anybody getting A, C, and D, they must get it while they are recovering. And I talk about COVID and the biggest. I give a lecture this to my medical students on COVID and obesity.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. as a culture, we need to talk more and we need more examples. For instance, Chris Christie was governor of New
Oh, what
Jersey.
happened? Didn't he go for bypass stomach surgery?
He went for the bariatric surgery.
You see, even when you do that, people gain back the weight.
That's right.
Because you have to have the behavior modification hand in hand. Surgery or Ozempic will do a temporary thing unless you change your behavior with the food. I'm not
Right.
saying you have to take the salad and water and fruit. You can take, in my book, my husband was a doctor, he died, and he wrote a foreword that you eat your favorite food. You don't have to give it up to lose weight.
Right. You just have to eat less of it. That's all.
Yeah, yeah.
Dr. Kaul, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
for writing this book.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Joey David goes by a couple of names. He's Joey when he plays basketball, Dr. Joseph David when he's treating physical therapy patients, but players on the very successful basketball team at Mount Lebanon High School in Pittsburgh just call him Coach. And that's where his book comes in. It is entitled The Bora Defensive System, a maximum disruption defense with unique actions and concepts that will help you win more games.
But it just kind of came about. I was doing some unique stuff at my high school and started keeping notes, and the notes accumulated more and more and more. And pretty soon I said, well, look, I could probably put this together and show other people, because people were really interested in what I was doing and they would always ask me. And so I decided to put it all together.
What kinds of things were you doing that other high schools aren't doing?
Well, it's a unique style of playing defense. So it's unique in a way that we attack the offense all the time. So we don't allow them to come down the court easily and run through their plays or call their plays out. We constantly put pressure on them, kind of relentless pressure on them, and trying to make them play against their will and do things that they aren't used to doing. For instance, Caitlin Clark's going to bring the ball down the court, right? We're going to send one person over there. We're going to double her right away. And we're going to make her pass the ball to somebody else. And then we're going to keep one person directly on her. But every time she gets the ball, we're sending somebody at her. So she's not going to have a one-on-one opportunity to score. And if we're going to lose, it's not going to be because Caitlin Clark went off for 40 points. It's going to be because maybe another person on the team, had an abnormal game of 28 points, 26 points. But normally if that happens, we win because we've taken their power, cut the head off the snake, so to say. We've taken that away.
Put the squeeze on.
Right. So it's just that's kind of the attitude where, look, we're going to take whatever you want to do. We're going to try to make you do something different.
Now, in your book, do you do diagrams?
Yes, there's I think over 100 some illustrations and with explanations and things of that nature. I'm also this summer going to put together a series of video clips of some of the drills and things of that nature so that coaches and players can see them and watch them. I wrote the book, thinking about coaches, but really so many players have called me and said, hey, they love the book. They love the way, some of the techniques and some of the actions that we use. And it's going to make them also better basketball players.
It sounds to me like people are already aware of the way you coach.
Yeah, they are aware of that. But this is the first time I put it into a book. A lot of people would call me and say, I'm watching your teams. I'm watching tapes of your teams. I think I know what you're trying to do here. I'm trying to figure out what you're trying to do. And they've come up with some crazy things. It's like, no, I'm not doing that at all. But now it's all out there for them. Boys, girls, this is for youth, college. I have college coaches reach out to me already. I've sat down with NBA people. Like if you look at the book, the back has Tim Gergerich. He's the guru in the NBA. He liked it a lot. And he compares it to some things that some coaches did in the past. People have tried to do variations of this in the past and done a very good job of it. So it's not, completely new. It's just some of the actions and some of the drills and some of the approach that I've put together, I think is a bit unique. It was interesting that I would tell my team that, what do you think about the fact that you're the only person on the planet that's doing these drills, because they're unique drills, and I thought they were really put together well as far as being able to make anybody a better defensive player in basketball. And, there's different drills we use. There's different techniques like the dive, the sweep, kick out, rear view deflections, rear view contests. We have names for all different things, whether it's a jam, whether it's a turkey, whether it's, we call all these different actions names. And it's awfully hard to describe to you on the phone, but that's what the video is for. And I think the book does a pretty good job of mapping it out and explaining it too.
Are you doing camps?
Yes. So, I have my own camp here for the high school, but I've had a lot of, like I said, coaches from all levels reach out, wanting to fly in or come in and watch us practice or watch some of the drills live that we do. I've been asked to come, do my interest in coming to them to try to, show them the things while, they're there with their team. And this is just in the last 2 months. So it's been pretty, the book just came out in January, right? So it's been pretty quick.
Yeah, I was going to say, talking to you, usually authors at this point, their book just came out in January. They are not as far along as it sounds like you are. People reaching out to you, but people know who you are anyway, don't they?
Just around here they do, yeah, but not across the country. So I played in the Big East back in the day, so with a lot of very, very, well-known names, Patrick Ewing, Chris Mullen, those type of names were during that time. So sometimes people still remember me when I played at Pitt.
And your high school must be very successful.
Yeah, we do a very good job, so we've won championships and district championships. We played in the state championships since I've been the coach. We play around the country. We'll play teams and go down to Florida. We usually travel once or twice, and we'll play teams from various parts of the country. And that's where a lot of the interaction of different coaches will come over to me, whether it's Missouri or Tennessee or Florida, and they'll say, hey, I want to get together with you. Can I call you sometime and talk to you about how you guys play?
So your book, it seems to me, you're going to another level that most schools aren't at right now.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
I think it's just the intensity of how we play. So most of the comments I get from opposing coaches, other coaches is, wow, your kids play so hard. I wish my guys could play as hard as your guys are playing. And that's just habit, that's repetition. And that's just when we do these drills, these board defensive drills, we go all out. And so I think they get into a habit of playing at a certain level and playing hard versus habits of kind of cruising, and I think that's the reason. I think this defensive philosophy is going to facilitate players playing at a higher level.
But how much of that also goes back to the coach?
It all goes back to the coach because, I can give you everything. I can give you everything written down and saying, hey, look, do this. But if you can't coach it, there's going to be issues. You have to be able to coach it, and you have to, you get what you tolerate. And if you tolerate, 50% effort in practice and expect them to turn it on in a game, it's not going to happen. So a lot of it goes back to the coach. I mean, people said to me when I put this on paper and put it out to the world to see, why would you do that? Like, you had an advantage. No one knew what you were doing in your defense, and now everybody's going to know what you are doing. And I said to them, yeah, but they still got to coach it. There are famous zones, the Syracuse zones, the different presses that have videotapes and books on all of them. But if you can't coach it, you really can't play it. And I think it's very similar. You really have to be a stickler for the little things when you're coaching, I think, to be successful.
Can you teach someone to be a good coach?
No, I think the book reflects that. The book reflects many times in there about, what we do and how this can make you a better basketball coach and how to coach this, way, and how to get your players to play harder and why aren't they playing harder? What's the difference between players now and players back in the day? The entitlement issue is addressed. All those things are addressed kind of, behind the whole concept of where I've come from as far as putting this book together.
Yeah, entitlement, I bet, is an interesting one because that can destroy a player.
It can destroy a player and a team. Yes, you're correct.
It's good to keep all things in perspective, isn't it?
No doubt about it. I did this for the love of the game. I didn't do it to make money. I didn't do it, but I'm a competitive person. I want it to be successful. I wanted to people to see it. I'm anxious to see how many people like it and their feedback on it. But this was more of a labor of love. This game of basketball has given me everything that I have in my life, one way or another. So it's just a way to give back.
Well, listen, I wish you the best of luck.
Well, thank you so much.
Our next author, Brighton Ncube, works in public health, and he's published many articles, mostly about HIV, AIDS, and prevention. Until now. In his book, The Broken Pieces, he uses his own experiences to give others hope.
It's just what inspired me is mostly the social conditions, like trying to give people hope. Like you see a lot of increase in suicide, a lot of depression cases, a lot of like this social support system is no longer as strong as in olden days, where people could go to your aunties, to your uncles, to problem solve. As a result, it leaves people vulnerable, lonely by themselves without any hope. So I was really trying to pick up from my life experiences, trying to give people hope that, bad times don't last forever. There is always, a light at the end of the tunnel. Just, encouraging people.
Do you think part of it too is people are afraid to admit that they need help?
Part of it is people are afraid of to admit, and also the stigma associated with that you're weak, you don't, you are a failure, things like that. So as a result, people try to soldier on by themselves, but in the process, they get depressed, they get, suicidal, and also end up with mental health problems because of depression, anxiety, things like that. But then for people to know that, somehow it's not the end. We all go through stuff, but that's not the end. I think it gives some light, some hope, and some assurance, and it gives people enough energy to keep on fighting, instead of giving up.
What are some of the experience you share in the book?
Yeah, like some of the experiences about like when I was growing up, going to school for the first time, we had bullies, and it was in the rural areas. And also using those experiences also to give some lessons about life. Then there were some experiences that I shared during the war. During the war, and also there was a genocide which was committed against my people, my ethnic group in Zimbabwe, in Southern Africa.
How old were you when you were in the war?
I was, because the war started in 1977, which means I was 7 years. Then, it continued up until 1982, really. I was 12 years then.
Did you have to fight as a child?
Not necessarily fighting, but being a spy for the freedom fighters. Like you go and spy on you pretend as if you're passing by, you gather some information, how many of the enemies, you count them, what types of guns are they carrying, stuff like that. Then you come and report to the freedom fighters, but knowing that it's a risky business, because if combat starts and you're in the middle of it, then that's the end of you. And so those were some risk experiences. And also the fact that, like, if there was a combat and you had to run into the forest, sometimes the fighting will go, the whole night, which means you slept in the forest with animals there, and you couldn't go home to cook. So maybe you will go maybe after 24 hours, after 2 days, then that's when you start to go and get your first meal. And if it was during summer, when even in the forest there are no fruits, those wild fruits which you can eat, it was tough, But maybe if it wasn't in summer where you could eat some of the wild fruits, then it was better, because you could eat whatever was there in the forest just to survive.
Can you give me an example of an experience that you had and how your faith helped you through it? I mean, isn't that what your book's about? It's about faith.
Yeah, it's about faith. Yeah. So the experience which I can highlight is when the freedom fighters came, And my grandfather really didn't fully, cooperate with their instructions, but rather he had us pray and, and be ready. By the time we went to meet with them, their anger had subsided, even though they had killed a lot of people in the neighboring villages. But we were spared because my grandfather really prayed and really sought the Lord that we be protected from their anger,
And you were.
Yeah, and we were protected, yes, and we were safe, yes.
Do you find people saying, I find that hard to believe? It happened for you, but could that happen for me? Do you find that?
Yeah, because people, don't have those experiences. So as a result, it's something that you have to cultivate that level of faith, and also to get testimonies from people who have had it before, Unlike fiction, where I just stand up and preach out of what I'm imagining. But if I'm talking from experience, that this is what actually happened, and this is how I saw the end of the Lord, guiding. So that makes a whole lot of a difference.
Well, you also talk about the pandemic, right? Wasn't the pandemic part of the reason that you wrote this book? I mean, because there was a lot of sorrow and death and loss.
Yeah. There was a lot of that. And keep in mind that also why I wrote was the fact that even though the pandemic is over, but the after effects of the pandemic are not yet over. People are still traumatized. People are still, are affected, like those who lost their loved ones. And also like when they see in the media that, oh, there is this virus that has been seen, that trauma comes back again. People feel, oh, it's coming again, and I'm going to lose a lot of my loved ones again, So trying to put perspective into saying, okay, these things will happen, but they won't mean that is the end of life or the end of the world. We shouldn't live in constant fear.
Yeah, I really think people in healthcare like yourself are you're on the front lines.
Yes,
people don't
yes.
believe. I think people want to believe the pandemic's over, but the ripple effects of the pandemic continue. And we have mental health issues in every city in America.
Yes.
Loneliness and still recovering from losing husbands, wives, daughters. But I don't think people see it like you do, because you're right there, helping people.
Yeah.
So in terms of getting the message out about your book, is there anything that you're doing from where you are?
Yeah, what I'm doing, I joined a number of groups on Facebook. So I was just waiting for the audio book to be fully out. Then I will be posting, really just trying to push it out through Facebook. Then in future, I was thinking also of connecting with some of the mega churches and see if they can advertise the book in their churches.
Why wouldn't you go speak?
Yeah,
You'd be a great speaker, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that would be great if I had the opportunity. So I'll be talking to them and see if they can give me that opportunity. That would be excellent, really.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, it was very interesting to talk to you, Brighton. Are you going to keep writing? Or are you going to keep publishing? Obviously, you've been writing your whole life, but will you keep writing along this line?
Yeah, I will keep writing along this line. Yeah, because I think what delayed me for now is that I was, as you saw in the book, finishing up my doctorate. So when I graduate this June, I will have all the time now to really write a lot, So I look forward to publishing. Thank you.
Good for you. Listen, it was great to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
A retired Marine colonel and now Penn State professor teaching security and risk analysis with a concentration in intelligence analysis and modeling, J.L. Graham brings his military and intelligence experience to his book, Scimitar Strike. Now, you also had a research facility, is that right?
Yes, had a research center for about 15 years. I still have a lab which focuses on undergraduate research and, the promotion of structured analytics, and it's called the Red Cell Analytics Lab. So we look at adversary views of the battle space.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm looking at your, synopsis of your book, and it's so intricate and it's so detailed. You would have to come from some kind of an intelligence background to speak about the kinds of things that you talk about in your book.
Yeah, it helps. I mean, I stay away from classified stuff, but quite a few of the events are resurrected real events, to tell the story, and integrated them into the first of a 5-book series. I've got 4 of the books written.
Okay. Are we in Iran when the book opens?
We're actually in Houston when the book opens.
Okay.
Yeah, but it involves an Iranian expatriate. So in 2011, the Iranian government actually did hire a cartel hitman to assassinate the Saudi ambassador to the U.S. That plot was discovered and thwarted. In 2012, the Trump administration had the commander of the Quds Force taken out by a Hellfire missile while he was in Iraq. Those are 2 true stories. Immediately following that assassination, or the killing of Qasem Soleimani in Iraq, the Iranian Supreme Council declared 13 revenge scenarios that they would enact against the great Satan, being the U.S. So I've taken that theme and created, 2 books primarily about that theme. And so that's where the story begins, the resurrection of that 10-year-old plan. And the reality of it is the resurrection of the plan was just a deception to focus American intelligence while the greater of the 13 revenge scenarios was carried out. So this will become a little more apparent in book 2. So the main character in this book is a DEA undercover agent. His name is Victor Rodriguez. He goes by the cover name Hector Cruz. So Hector Cruz is trying to infiltrate this plot. And, the plot came to the attention of the DEA through a paid informant, pretty low-level paid informant. And this low-level paid informant was at the very front end of trying to coordinate this cartel muscle. He didn't really have the horsepower to do that, but he bragged about it. He told some people about it, and he realized he was in over his head, and that maybe he could make a profit by selling the intel to his DEA handler. And that's where it got the attention of the intelligence services. A corroborating piece of intelligence that was sent to the FBI came through their international partners, intelligence partners. And then when those 2 pieces of information got joined, they realized that they had an active threat. So they decided to infiltrate it. They placed Victor Rodriguez, aka Hector Cruz, into the plot. He gets to know the characters, and eventually they'd have an actual plan to carry out a bombing on the Saudi ambassador's private residence. And but he's been tipped off and he's not there. But the whole time, this was really just a ruse to gain the attention and pull manpower from the investigative agencies towards this plot while they worked on the follow-on plot, which comes out in book 2.
Are you a Tom Clancy fan?
I am, yeah. I mean, I think anybody who's been in the military, kind of in that genre, you kind of live that. I always look at something with an eye on, is this plausible? Is it feasible? And is it executable? And those are the 3 merits that we build all of our plans on. So this is my first novel, but I've written a lot of, academic publications. So it's not my first published work.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first in this genre. But I create intelligence scenarios for the classroom. And, of course, the students, they want to be entertained, and they're looking for the zombie apocalypse type of scenario. And I tell them, look, you're not going to find that in my intelligence scenarios. They're going to be within the laws of physics, for one. So there's not going to be any, teletransportation or any wild zombie type characters in my intelligence stories. After writing these intelligence scenarios for the last 16 years at Penn State, I decided I'm going to start turning them into novels.
Okay.
So the reason I was able to write 4 books in 3 years is because I'd already done a lot of the deep research that, went into it, into the intelligence development. The character development, that has to happen differently. But
do you make your book a requirement for your students?
No, not this book. No, they go through the intelligence scenarios. They're part of the classroom. What's going to be funny is that in book 2, 2 of those scenarios surface in book 2. So students who have had my class are going to recognize, thematically, they're going to recognize some of the plot.
So in terms of, getting attention for your book, is the university helping you out in any way?
They have advertised it locally, across my college, but at the Army Navy Club in Washington, D.C. In fact, right before you called, I was on the phone with a gentleman there that wants to do kind of a backgrounder piece for the Army Navy Club newsletter. And then they've asked me to come in and, do a talk and book signing. So that's in the works.
That's a great start.
Anyway, I was approached by somebody today who is going to get a hold of the Today Show and try to communicate with Jenna Bush. I have a history with the Bushes. I was a presidential pilot for 4.5 years.
That must have been really interesting.
Yeah, so I flew Jenna Bush's granddad. Spent a lot of time with the family, first family at Camp David and Kennebunkport and places in between. So if that happens, that'd be, if they make that connection and she's willing to talk about the book, that'd be awesome.
Okay. Well, listen, I look forward to speaking with you again. So you're going to publish your next book?
Yeah, it should be coming out late summer, early fall, and that's called The Assassin's Mace. And it's interesting how the things that are happening in Israel right now and in Yemen and other places, Syria, Lebanon. I touch on pieces of all those things in my writing. So it's interesting how some of those things are coming to fruition.
Interesting and frightening at the same time.
It is kind of frightening, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Listen, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me.
All right. Thank you.
Wilma J. Roberts worked for the FBI before she started writing children's books. The Silver Slippers is her second book for Page Publishing, and I'm curious, what kind of work did you do for the FBI?
Well, I can't talk about it. You know that.
Did you travel all over the world?
Yeah.
You were like Wilma Bond.
I've been to more places than what you could write down. I've been to most of the states, the United States, England, France, Germany, Italy, Greece, Turkey, Iceland, China, Japan, Vietnam.
Was it really exciting? Did you love it?
It's exciting to travel, but you know something? There's nothing in the world like coming home to the United States.
I agree.
Yeah, it's wonderful to travel, but some of the places I've been, Vietnam was the poorest place I'd ever seen in my life. And, we complain here about poverty and all that, but you've never seen poverty like living in a shack. This is their permanent home, a tar paper shack with, corrugated aluminum, corrugated panels, and the ground, Mother Earth is your only floor. And the pigs and the chickens live in that same house you do.
I know, it's very sad. Did you ever write before? Did you ever keep a journal?
No, I just write from my heart what I feel. I started writing after my husband passed away. We were married for quite a few years. He was a colonel in the Air Force, and he was a fighter pilot, World War II, Korea, Vietnam. He's a decorated fighter pilot in 3 wars, and he died in 2006.
So that's when you started writing.
Yeah, it was a kind of a relief. My sister died of breast cancer when she was only 54 years old, something like that. And my only sister, and I remember, I wish every day we could be together, but she died in 95. And I wrote for her 2 years ago, about a little girl who aspires to be a ballerina. She has no money. She's kind of poor, like we were. She has a grandmother that helps her. Her grandmother gives her the pair of shoes that she wanted to be a ballerina herself, and she finds these silver slippers in a trunk upstairs. And she uses them, and she dances, and she wins a prize. She's just starting high school. And we never thought of ourselves as being poor because everybody we knew and everybody around us was the same financial position we were. We never thought of ourselves as being poor because we didn't associate with rich people. We didn't know the difference. My dad was a coal miner and a farmer, and he provided well for us. He was a real good man. I came from a real good family. We were not terribly religious, but he was a good man. No drinking, good father, always provided for us well. She was also worked with FBI, and we, before each of us got married, we roomed together when both of us worked for the FBI together.
That's pretty exceptional because it's not easy to get a job with the FBI, is it?
I know. My dad and mother raised us to be good people, kind, generous, helpful people. He said, your reputation as you're growing up is all you have. So keep it, take care to always do right things and never get into trouble because, that's the way he taught us. Never get into trouble. Always do the right thing.
So in the book that's based on your sister, the little girl who gets the silver slippers is your sister.
Yes.
What happens to her?
Well, she wins a prize. Her goal was to win that prize in high school, and that's what she did. And it was her deceased grandmother's shoes, silver slippers that she used because the ones she wanted in the store were already sold and she couldn't find any, and she didn't have a lot of money to buy one pair with. So she looked up, and her mother said, there's a trunk up in the attic, and maybe she left something for us up there. And they looked in that. There was a pair of silver slippers in an old trunk up in the attic. And she used them, and she's dancing. And on stage, she says, she looked down, and there was kind of a foggy section, and it kind of hovered over the chair where she was sitting. And it seemed like kind of surreal. No one else seemed to notice, like as if, an angel was sitting there, or at least in the presence of that. And when it's over, she goes down. Her mother and dad congratulate her on getting, being the best dancer. And in the chair lays a white feather, as if an angel had dropped it.
Oh, that is so sweet.
Yeah.
What's the message?
Pursue your goals and your dreams, but work hard because they're not going to come to you without you doing something. You've got to put forth an effort. You've got to pursue what you want, not just wait for it to be handed to you. You've got to work for it. But success will come if you work hard enough for it.
Now, this is your second book for Page.
Yes. How
did you make out with your first book?
Well, the first book, The Lucky Little Chicken, basically the theme was be yourself. See, this little lucky little chicken, he didn't know that he was a chicken. He thought he was a duck because the wind came that day and blew the eggs down the hill into Henrietta Hen's nest. And he was hatched by a mother duck. And because she wasn't aware that an extra egg was in her nest. And he was hatched with some ducks, and they were white, and he was red. He was a little red chicken, but he wants to be just like them. So he tries hard, and he goes out in the cotton fields, and he plucks the cotton and sticks them in his feathers to try to look like the rest of his family. But the rain washes him all out, and in the end, he doesn't know it's not his mother. He thinks that's his mother. His mother takes him down to the river, to the creek, And all his little brothers and sisters jump right in. They start swimming, but he can't swim, so he just almost sinks, and she has to drag him back to the shore. After all, he's a chicken. He's not a duck. But he tries to be like them in order to fit in. That's what my theme was in that book. Don't try to be like everybody else. Be yourself, but be the best you that you can be, because you are special and you are loved just the way you are.
You going to keep writing?
I write just because I want to write.
Really enjoyed talking to you, Wilma.
Oh, thank you, honey. Anytime you want to call, give me a call. I'm right here. Except on Wednesday nights, I work Wednesday nights.
Oh, okay.
I'll work at the courthouse as a volunteer in the programs at the courthouse for young children, for young boys, young kids that want to try to keep them out of trouble.
So bring your books. Bring your books.
Okay.
Read your books to them.
Okay, honey.
All right,
Well,
Wilma.
you have a great day.
If you like haunted houses and witches wreaking havoc around the turn of the century, check out The Haven by Jeffery Harris. Now, you've been writing for a while, right?
Yeah, actually, believe it or not, I actually wrote a book about a haunted house, which is something I will be writing later in the future. It'll be touched up on, of course, but I wrote probably, I would say 11 or 12 years old. I was back in middle school. During class, I'm in there writing on my notebook. And I'm just sitting there writing. I'm supposed to be learning, yeah. Until I got to history class, because those were my favorite. I loved history.
At what point did you decide to write The Haven?
Well, the original idea I came up with that back in 2018. I was working at a boatyard then, and I came up with the idea, but I wasn't writing at the time. I gave up on writing. I just kind of took a different turn in life and decided, you know what, I'm just going to stick with jobs, because, I don't want to get into the whole works of trying to get this book thing going, and then nothing happens, and then I'll just be left depressed feeling about it. So I decided to leave it be. Then I went to try it again in 2020. I started on another book. I didn't do The Haven. I actually put it aside. I said, I'm going to do this other book because I got more ideas for it first. So I started writing on it, but I gave up again, of course, way things were going that year, and I just kind of gave up. 2023, I was at work and decided to sit, because I had some free time going on, weren't doing much, so we're waiting on trucks coming in. So I decided to sit down and start writing, and that's when I decided to do The Haven. It was shortly after my sister died. I felt bad for not writing, because she used to love reading my stuff, and I never would, post anything, never put anything out there.
So this is kind of for her in a way.
Yeah, because she used to love stories about, she loves, like scary stories and comedies, you name it. She loved it, and she liked my writings. And like I said, I used to write screenplays, and I was trying to find buyers, but I don't know. I guess I was young and stupid. I wouldn't sell them on certain prices, and I was nervous because some of them wanted to buy it without my name, and I was nervous because I wanted some recognition. And I look back at it now, and I'll go, man, I just wish I'd have just sold, got the money, and went on, because I'm full of thousands upon thousands of ideas. So, I mean, yeah.
Well, listen, hey, you're not dead yet, okay? So anything can happen. Anything can happen.
Oh, yeah.
But your love of history is evident in just, reading the synopsis of the book. And it's the year 1817. Why did you pick that year?
Honestly, I liked it better. It just fitted in, because it also gives me a fitting to use the main witch towards the end, when everybody finally learns who the main witch is, because I'm actually planning on doing probably a trilogy based off of her.
Oh.
Because on the second one, I'm going to probably throw her into the later 1800s or the mid 1800s. Then the third one, she'll be in the 1900s going into the millennium.
Wow.
So it's a long kind of trilogy thing, but based with all kinds of other sequels based on other witches and stuff. But yeah, I just like the 1800s because I thought it would be more scary without the technology. You're down in the woods, you're a bunch of farmers, you're out in the thick of the woods, you're out in the mountains. You don't, they know about witches, but they never came across one to this kind of caliber. So it just, I don't know, I just felt like it was more spookier.
We're in the Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina, or is it Appalachia? How do you say that? How do you refer?
I don't know. I hear everybody says it. I say Appalachian or Appalachian.
Okay.
So I say it so many different ways. That's why I usually don't say it too much on live feed, saying the word itself.
I don't think either one is wrong. I really don't.
I don't know. The people that live around here calls it Appalachian. So I just go with the way I said. It made me a little more comfortable at least.
Okay, so what's going on with these witches, man? What happens? It's such a quiet, peaceful town. Everybody's going about their business, and what happens?
Well, it starts with one witch, Lavinia. She was from Romania and came over here because she's hell bent on destruction because of her life. I actually posted a video about her just yesterday on my YouTube channel, a little book trailer about her, because I'm actually going to write the book about her, the history of what got started with her. And she grew up in a broken home. They were a rich, wealthy family, but see, her mom died during her childbirth. So her dad resented her, and so did her 4 other sisters. They resented her, beat on her, abused her. Her dad went far extreme, to her. And at 13, she discovered there was a witch living outside her village there in Romania. So she went to visit the witch. But this is a good witch. She uses good herbs and good magic. And she decides to help the girl, but she warns her, do not use what I teach you for, do not abuse it and do not use it for evil. Of course, when she turned 16, she snapped. Her mind finally the magic she learned, all the abuse she took, she just snapped and became evil. And that's why she's the way she is. And she came in contact with the other 3 witches that had certain lifestyles close to hers, and she used them to create a haven out of them.
So, we have the Edwards family, and all of a sudden their crops start dying, their cattle go missing, their youngest daughter goes missing. I mean, this is one powerful witch, right? That's at work here.
Oh, yeah. The original way I wrote this book was for the readers to know who the main witch is.
Okay.
But the family won't know, but you will know as a reader. And as I got started on the book, I changed my mind I think I got into the 3rd chapter, and I said, wait a minute, you know what? I don't want to do this route. I want to make it a mystery. I want a suspense put into this, with this witch, because I felt like it would make it a little more scarier, more suspenseful, and more on the edge.
Okay.
Reading, kind of trying to figure out who she is. But the main one that's taken over that town of the Edwards family and all, she's using the Edwards family at first, so that way the town thinks they are cursed, and now their curse leaks out on them, and now they're, it's wreaking havoc on them in their life, and it's making them hate and resent them now.
So we find out along the way that there were a couple of witches 18 years ago who were up to no good.
Yep, that was Lavinia and her congregation of witches. That was their coven. It was her and her the other 3 witches that made 4 of them, called the elderly witches, because they had been living for hundreds of years through the magics that made them live longer, using children.
Oh, so the children have something to do with their longevity. I was going to say they never die.
The eternal youth. Yep. Oh yeah, they can. They just know people know how to. Sometimes fear keeps you from knowing how to defeat somebody. If you think about it, because fear can motivate, but fear can conquer you also. Right at the very end, it will all fall into place completely. You'll be like, oh wow, I really understand it.
So how are you getting people interested in your book? You said you have a trailer out there on YouTube.
Yeah, Fulton Books made one for me. They got one on their YouTube as well, and I've been basically sharing it around to everybody that I know all over Facebook. I get on Facebook and I tell people, check out the book trailer Fulton Books has on YouTube, and all you have to do is look up The Haven by Jeffery Harris and you'll find it. And and then of course on mine I just kind of send the picture of my book and a little bit of detail about the book. I go to all these Facebook groups all over that do books and horror stuff, and I've been joining all kinds of groups and meeting new people and sharing about the book. I was wanting to see, I was going to probably start out my Books A Million right here in New Bern. I was going to try them and see if they'll allow me to come in there.
It's a great idea. Or if you have any other local bookstores. How did you feel when you got that book in the mail?
Oh yeah, that was actually, I can't really put it into words, but it was a good feeling. I was excited. It felt good to actually hold one of them books. I'm like, man, something I finally accomplished.
There you go.
It was a really good feeling. I remember when I got the box in, it was heavy, and we sat it down, and my friend looked at me, and he's like, what is that? And I was like, I don't know. I said, this thing's huge. I said, it can't be my books, because I didn't think nothing of it. I thought they were sending me, I don't know what I was thinking. I know my email had told me they were sending, I forget how many. For some odd reason, I'm thinking I'm getting one copy. I don't know why I was thinking that. I guess I had so much on my mind and so much stuff I've been doing.
Right.
But yeah, we opened up the box and there was a whole bunch of them in there. I'm like, oh, good gosh. And then it dawned on me when I said, oh, wait a minute. They told me they were sending multiple so I could give out any to the family or something, some family and friends. And, yeah. Yeah, I get like that.
Yeah, that's exciting though. You
Yeah,
did.
it,
You
it
did
was.
it. You did it.
Yeah, I actually did finish my second book. I'm actually been reviewing it the last couple of days, going over it, reading over it, reviewing it. But of course, I want to see how this book does before I ever send it off. I want to make sure this book does something first, you know. So,
All right. Well, listen, I wish you the best of luck. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
oh yeah, no problem.
Tammie Lynne joins us now on Zoom from British Columbia to talk about her book, In the Dead of Night. She's also very crafty. You've made a lot of merch for this book, haven't you?
For my book launch, I've made bookmarks, postcards, and all that to put into the books and, thanking people and I make jewelry. So my author boxes are going to have a little thank you bracelet in them saying thank you for supporting me. And it's just to give you an idea of what I did. So I had these printed up. They're postcard covers with the book cover and a little blurb about the book. And then on the back, stamped it with a postcard. And then I made these labels saying where the book can be purchased from.
That's great.
But in the author boxes, I'm making mugs.
In the Dead of Night, it's a white mug, Tammie Lynne, Lynne. Tammie, that's great. You're so creative. When did you start writing?
When I was 9 years old. Short stories, entered poetry contests. It was to help with my dyslexia.
How did that help you?
Because I had to practice every day. My mom and I would read it together every day for 15, 20 minutes. And I had to read to her one page. She'd read to me another page. And then to get better with writing, because my numbers and my letters were all mixed up, I had to write in a journal every day about my day. And then she wanted me to get more creative because she was creative. So she wanted me to explore writing and to practice. So I wrote every day.
That's great. When did you decide to take the leap into publishing?
The first book I published on Amazon my own in 2014 and only sold 2 books, but that was mostly because I didn't realize that the copy I got from them was great, but the 2 books that went out were printed really weird and had like a bunch of mixed pages in them and blanks and stuff. And so I just pulled it from the shelf and said, never again.
Yeah, that was 2014. So what happened? Something turned you around.
Well, I still wrote. I have in my arsenal of novels, written novels, I have about 9 that I've never published, just wrote over the years. And then my mom got sick in 2016, end of 2016, beginning of 2017. So she read that book that I just published and said she loved it. She wanted me to write it and, finish it completely, get it edited and publish it, because she didn't want me to have the same regrets that she did, because she had all kinds of stuff that she wanted to publish. She just thought she'd have more time. And then a few months later, she passed away. So I wanted to at least publish that one book properly.
What was the inspiration for that book?
A dream. It was a dream. I had a dream and woke up and just wrote. And the first half of the book it took 6 months for the first half, because it was just the thought that randomly went through my head from an experience that I'd had as a child. Or I should say a very young teenager. And then the last half of the book, I had the dream where the whole book came together. So when I woke up, I took a week off from work and just wrote, and I finished it.
No problem getting a week off? Hi, I want to finish my book. That was no problem?
No, I work part-time because of the accident that I have. I was working part-time, and so I ended up being able to I needed a week anyways because I had holidays coming. So I said, yeah, Penny, do you mind if I take a week off? And she's like, nope, go right ahead, because she's really supportive of my book. Right.
What do you do for a living?
I was working at an auto shop. a mechanic shop as the front desk, to go to, drive customers around, stuff like that. But
Right.
yeah, I'm not working there now because of medical reasons.
So really, this book was based on something that happened to you, and then the dream just helped you finish it off.
No, the incident that I had in my childhood only sparked one tiny part of it.
Okay.
But I had such a wild imagination as a child that the thing that happened, I let it grow and say, well, this is what really happened. This is why this happened, and everything. And that's how it turned into the story.
So tell me the story.
It's about a woman who lives in Midway, BC.
British Columbia, where you are right now.
That's right. And she works as a geriatrics nurse. She's about my age. All my women characters and the males and stuff counterparts are in their 50s, late 40s, early 50s kind of thing. And she is working an afternoon shift when she comes across a file and realizes that the person that had been wheeled in earlier was actually this long lost guy that she had a crush on from her childhood.
Okay.
And she never realized, she didn't know what happened to him. They parted ways and stuff. And so the story is that somebody had tried to kill him when he was overseas in a military camp. And I took the incident of me getting run over a few years ago and put that in the story as he got ran over. So
You got run over by a car
I got run over by a truck.
and lived to tell the tale.
Yeah, and that's the medical things that I'm dealing with. So I put that part in the story so that he got ran over by an armored truck.
How do you survive that?
You learn to tuck and roll and try not to let it run you over in parts that might cause problems later.
So what parts were run over for you, and
My
then
lower
what parts
legs.
were run over for your character?
My lower legs, and the impact was on my side and my head, and the other part of my body got impacted. So yeah, I bounced pretty good.
And so the same for your character.
The character, yeah, he got ran over from the waist down.
It's like you're playing out your own stuff through your book.
Yeah.
So, because psychologically that can't be good.
No, I'm terrified of crosswalks.
I would think so. Is your character terrified?
I never actually put that in there. I think he was so focused on his personal mission of trying to find these documents that his father had stolen when he was a kid that got his dad killed, that it never fazed him in the story. And then his brother is trying to help him and stuff like that, his younger brother. And
Are these documents tied to the mob? Is this where you make the mob connection?
yes, the father owed a substantial amount of money to the mob. And the mob had ties in the government, Canadian government, to keep it from ever becoming too powerful, Canada becoming too powerful. So that's how I tied that all in. And then when the mob found out that these boys were back trying to get stuff done, it just went to hell in a handbasket.
So does the mob find out that he's in the hospital? The son?
Yes, but they didn't worry about it too much because he was pretty much on death's bed, because while he was being treated over in Europe, there was a doctor that they had hired to finish the job off. And so the doctor made him sick with a very rare disease.
So things just went from bad to worse for him.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of running and a lot of driving at night, going clear across BC to, at one point, the hideout in Bella Coola, BC.
When you're running through British Columbia, for our listeners who might not never been there, are we talking about very mountainous territory?
Yes.
And dangerous, treacherous, right?
Can be, yes. 14, 15-hour drives. But yeah, then they go to, back to Midway area in BC, and that's where it kind of gets all tied together. So
Okay, so you've got bookmarks and bracelets and cups and all these things, tchotchkes that, anybody who wants to read your book is going to get. Where do you set yourself up? Where do you set up a table?
Well, I have the author boxes. There's only a limited of 20 boxes.
What are these
And
boxes? Where are they?
I'm making them. I'm putting them together, and then I mail them out as people order them. But I haven't set that part up because they will be ordering through the website or message me on Facebook or Instagram or wherever. And so I got the sell sheets out that and I just got them, so I'm handing those out to the bookstores and talking to them about putting the books into their stores and stuff. So yeah, I will, be having them hopefully in like trades here and stuff, like markets and stuff here, coffee shops. And I'll be approaching like Kohl's and in Penticton and stuff. I know the manager there, and she had said when I'd first mentioned about this, well, when you're ready, come and see me and bring your book. So
Good. Really good. And now you've got how many? You've got 9 finished books. So what are you going to do?
I haven't really decided yet. I wanted to see, get this one going, and I keep writing, of course, every day. And but yeah, my goal is that this is what I want to do full time. So yeah, we'll see how things go.
I just have to ask you, the mob part of the book,
Yep.
was that in your dream?
That was my imagination as a kid. And it wasn't until years later that I found out that, Canada does have a mob.
They do. I thought only the United States had in Chicago, New York, right? Florida.
Right.
New Orleans, full of the mob, right?
Yeah.
Good to know. Canada has a mob too. What do you call them?
It's basically families. It's not like a gang kind of thing. They're powerful families and stuff. So
Okay. Are they Italian, Irish, or does that play in at all?
Yes and no. So I'm not gonna reveal too much of that part because that is a huge part of why this happened in the first place, from the
their culture is
yes.
Very good.
Yeah.
Nice work, Tammie. Look, people love getting stuff for free. You buy my book, you get something for free. Let me know how you make out with that.
I will.
All right. Thank you so much. You have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.